focus on the road. Don't do it. Just don't do it, especially if you're trying to drive between Cincinnati and Lexington. It is rough. It is a rough go of it. Y'all, welcome back to another day of Vlogmas. I am not sure which day this is going to be going up, but I'm excited to talk about another book, and this time I wrote even more notes. I think also this one is a little bit more organized, so we shall see. And I've got my wine because the main character gets into a lot of trouble because she was drinking wine after talking with a mutual love interest while also having some financial problems. So all of those are combined. I very much understand that. And yes, I am drinking this with a straw because why not? I am an adult and I can drink it with a straw if I want. Okay, so the book I'm talking about is Lovelight Farm by B.K. Borision. So I'm just reading a summary off of my laptop of the book. A pasture of dead trees, a hostile takeover of the Santa's barn by a family of raccoons, and shipments that were mysteriously gone missing. Lovelight Farms is not the magical winter wonderland of Stella Bloom's dreams. In an effort to save the Christmas tree farm she loved since she was a kid, she enters a contest with Insta-famous influencer Evelyn St. James. With the added publicity and the $100,000 cash prize, she might be able to save the farm from financial woes. There's one problem. To make the farm seem like a romantic destination for the holidays, she lied on the application and said she owns Lovelight Farms with her boyfriend, only there's no boyfriend. Enter her best friend, Luca Peters. He just came home for some hot chocolate and somehow got a farm and a serious girlfriend in the process. Lovelight Farms is a romantic comedy featuring a handsome freckled data analyst, a messy optimistic Christmas tree farm owner, and a small town with the best hazelnut lattes on the East Coast. This sweet and steamy romance is a holiday happily ever after, and the first book in a series of interconnected standalones following the three Lovelights owners. And actually, there is also a fourth book following another character. It has just yet to come out. I'm sorry if that was a little rough. I'm never really good at reading out loud. So, overall, this is definitely a very cute holiday romance, and the holiday romance aspect of it more comes from the fact that it is at a Christmas tree farm, but the big holidays that we really are involved with are Halloween is more mentioned and Thanksgiving. Yeah, it is a series. I've got the other books in my libro.fm. I bought like the next two books in the series and I'm really excited because I liked the characters a lot. Specifically, I loved Stella, I loved Luca, and then the other two business partners, Beckett and Layla. And Layla is like the baker, Beckett is the like main farmhand, and of course I like the farmhand. Like that is a character I always love. And I liked it because in this first book we kind of started to get like little bits and pieces of the other relationships that we were like going to be following in the next two books. And in the fourth book we do, the main character is actually Stella's half-brother, and we get him a little bit in this one, and I wonder if we're going to get him more in other chapter or other books, but I don't know. If we're looking at kind of a rating in terms of how steamy it is definitely an AO3 explicit. It is not like graphic, but it is explicit, and do not read it while driving, because you will get a little bit distracted as you're listening to these descriptions and you're like, oh my gosh, this is great. But I'm like, I gotta focus on the road. Just don't do it. Just don't do it, especially if you're trying to drive between Cincinnati and Lexington. It is rough. It is a rough go of it. Also with this book, if you're looking for specific tropes, There is definitely a lot of found family in this. I loved that aspect about it. I love a good found family trope, and this big sense of community. And again, that's what you get a lot of times in these small town stories. And in this case, like, she has generally felt like an outsider, but to everybody else in this community, she is definitely like a staple, which is great. The Luca and Estella love story is definitely a friends to lovers, mutual pining, which of course is very sickeningly sweet, and I loved that aspect. And then because, again, as the main plot of it, because Stella had said that she had this boyfriend, there's the fake dating trope, which fake dating inevitably leads to major miscommunication. I mean, like, Stella misreads everything that happens. It's a little bit frustrating, but also, again, because of her background, which we find out, like, her dad noped out the second her mother told her that she was pregnant with Stella. And her mother had been working a lot of minimum wage jobs and moving around a lot. She never felt like she had roots until she'd moved to the small town, which I always forget the name of the small town. The thing I remember about it is that its nickname is Little Florence, and it takes place in, like, Maryland. That's what it was. They never initially say. Later on, we find out it's in Maryland. The biggest thing we know is that Luca is in New York City, and then he was going to be moving to Delaware. Spoiler alerts. I mean, that's not a big thing, but now I'm going to be going more into spoilers, so just be aware. I mean, the obvious thing you can tell, they're gonna end up together. That wouldn't be a romance novel without the two main characters ending up together, especially when you find out there are other standalones, like in this town. And it seems a lot of the times that this miscommunication is more on Stella's part, I will acknowledge. Granted, also, we only are following Stella's perspective until the epilogue. And so, like, in this whole thing, at one point they had said, okay, they have a lot of awkward interactions after they initially said, yes, we will do the fake dating. So they decide, okay, for the, like, week that Evelyn St. James is there, that they will actually act like a couple no matter what. Like, if they're in private or in person, as they kind of are testing out the waters. And in this case, as we find out, like, Stella thinks, oh, it is just for this week, and then we go back. How do we go back? I don't know, especially after some of those very steamy scenes. But she thinks, oh, we just have to go back. That was not what Luca was thinking at all. But some of the things that she mentions are, like, she has this thought process of, oh, well, as long as I have him for this week, that's all that'll get me through the rest of my life. And I'm like, I have read that exact same sentiment in a fan fiction. Is it a great fan fiction? Yes. Is it a fan fiction that I go back to because it has a little special place in my heart? You betcha. Which is probably one of those things that I loved the most about this, and the mutual pining kind of aspect of it is this thing of, like, as long as I have him for a day, a week, whatever, I can go the rest of my life without anybody else. I don't know, that always hits me. But yeah, she just doesn't realize that Luca is in it for the long haul. And they've got a lot of cute, like, things around them. Like the fact that he will, like, leave random, like, Christmas tree air fresheners all around, and she has to find them periodically. Like, he'll leave and she finds one in her coat pocket or in, like, a random drawer. It's fun. Because also, yes, Luca lives in New York City, but his mother lives in Little Florence. Also, so with Stella, in terms of the town, and that's where we found a lot of the found family, she has a huge shield up, again, because she'd moved around a lot, she doesn't trust a lot of people, and so at points it's things like everybody in the town had said, oh, if Evelyn St. James is coming to the Christmas tree farm, everybody sign up so that we can all go to the farm so that it looks like it's more busy. She's like, wait, people, like, think of that about me? And they're like, yes, we're all there to help you. Because she'd been there since she was about, like, 13. And she has her, like, a father figure who I think his name is Dan, but I cannot remember. He's the local cop who, he himself is gay. So there was no, like, relationship between him and her mother, but he, like, took both of them under his wing. It's a very sweet, like, paternal relationship that she had been missing for her, like, life. But yeah, she had for a long time thought of the town just kind of it seemed like, tolerated her, not that they actually loved her. And she tried to hide everything. Like, she tried to hide the financial woes that they were having until it boiled over. And then she finally told Beckett and Layla, and they were like, you know what? We are all going to be business partners, like proper business partners. Like, the second she let go of the problems she was having, things turned out for the best. It was the same thing of, like, the fact that they were missing different shipments and that there was a problem with the Southfield. Once she actually opened up and told the cop and Luca what was going on and explaining more to Beckett what was happening, things got resolved. Like, she just was shouldering everything on herself, and it kind of makes sense based off of how she'd grown up, but starting to kind of, like, let down your walls was a good thing for her, like, to see and for her to do, because also, like, they actually do resolve that conflict of why things were going missing, because she was thinking it was all kind of random, and honestly, like, I think I would have too until things had started to escalate more, because right as Evelyn St. James is coming, things started to escalate, but then pretty quickly it gets resolved, but in, like, a way that makes sense. Not like in some other books I'm going to talk about where things got resolved, where you're like, really? That's how things got resolved? But it was things like, okay, we'll start setting up a little, like, security cameras. Great. And then because one of the security cameras had gotten damaged, and thankfully nothing else had gotten damaged that time, Beckett and Luca chased the guy. Then after that, he got scared because it was, spoiler alerts, it was the librarian who wanted an alpaca farm. Like, who? What? But yeah, that was it was something where I'm like, you know what? I actually understand how somebody could kind of go that craze, but then also, like, revert back as, like, quickly as possible. Like, that seemed really reasonable. And I also like just some of the small town atmosphere of things. Like, they've got one Lyft driver, Gus, who randomly shows up at different points. I'm, like, hit or miss on the fact that, like, sometimes we get a lot of named characters quickly, and I'm like, hi, really? Like, one or two, like, oh shoot, I cannot remember the name of the old lady that runs the coffee shop that has those really good hazelnut lattes, which, fun fact, you can only get if you compliment her in a very specific way, and it changes every, like, day. And Luca always gets them, but that's about it. Luca and Beckett. But, like, none of the women actually get it. And, like, Stella always ends up getting, what's-its-face? Decaf for no apparent reason. I like those little quirks of a small town. At least that's in books. I've never lived in a small town, so I don't know if that's actually how everything happens, but, like, the quirk of, no, you'll only get a hazelnut latte, and only one person will get a hazelnut latte based off of these comments. I did appreciate that. So also, definitely this book focuses more on Stella's growth. We didn't really get anything from Luca. Luca kind of stayed the same throughout the whole story. There's, like, one point where he opens up a bit more in the fact that, like, he talks a bit more about his father. So both Stella's mother is deceased. She died from cancer, as we kind of find out over time. And then Luca's father, we never actually find out how he dies, but we know he dies kind of suddenly when he's a kid. That's kind of, like, one of those things where it's good to, like, have Luca open up more, because we already find out that he's kind of just shut down from that, like, from his mother, who Stella is quite close to. But then we don't see him grow at all, really. And I don't know if that's just because we only get one POV of Luca, and that's at the very end, or if this is just more some girl's journey. Yeah, I appreciated Stella's journey throughout this. Some, like, kind of complaints I have about it. I definitely sometimes think that, like, the characters coming in and out. Like, for a while I was like, wait, who is Gus? Because he shows up, like, 2 or 3 times. We never actually really find out a lot about him. I think the first time we meet him is because he's giving Stella money because he won the bet about how long it would take for Stella and Luca to start dating. Because before they actually truly proclaim their love for each other and the fake dating, they're like, oh shoot, we gotta go out into the small town and prove to everybody that we're dating. Like, we have to do that. Gossip is a thing. That gossip bites him in the butt later on, but, like, it's still kind of cute. And Gus is with another girl, but I forgot her name. She only, again, shows up, like, twice because she's the town gossip. There's other characters where I'm like, maybe they'll show up again in the later books, but they haven't really. Although in this first book we do meet everybody in those first 3 books. They're like the main character and their love interest, which I do appreciate, and we kind of got that seeded out. But things like, we also, like, Charlie, who we hear about him in the first, like, not in the first little bit, early on in the book. We find out that he is Stella's, like, half-brother who's only, like, 8 months younger than him, something like that. We hear Charlie, and he's in, like, 3 chapters, and then we don't hear about him again until the epilogue, and I was like, we get to that point in the epilogue, and I'm like, wait, what? Who's Charlie? Who is this other person? What's going on? And I'm like, it took me, like, a good couple of minutes to realize that's who the character was, which maybe is also a problem of listening to the audiobook versus the physical book. Other things, like, we don't get a great timeline. Like, they never start off chapters kind of split, like, stating what time of the year it is, or, like, what date. Because that would actually be kind of a good idea, is almost stating the date, at least of the start of the chapter. Because we start, I think, in October timeframe, and we finish at the last week of November. But it kind of jumps, so I don't know how much Luca is coming to visit, because he lives in a different state, but he drives down, or takes the train down typically. But that kind of was a little bit confusing, as, like, we have these, like, time jumps, but it never, you kind of have to pick it up from the context clues, and I wish they would actually explicitly say how long each of those time jumps are. Because, yeah, we start off at one point because the pumpkins get destroyed. They turn it into, like, a fun kind of pumpkin patch scary thing for the high schoolers, which I do appreciate also. The fact that they, like, in this book with, like, Stella, Beckett, and Layla, they very much also cater to the high schoolers in terms of different events. After having Beckett and Luca completely scare the high schoolers because they were doing stuff they probably shouldn't be on the property. Other characters that I'm like, okay, I think we'll call him Dan. I don't know if that's his name. I'll find out later when I read the next book. But the kind of male parental figure for Stella, he has kind of a burgeoning romance that I would have loved to hear more, like, her teasing him about that throughout the book, because she gets him to initially go and ask the guy out, because that was the guy that made pizza, but they don't really talk more about it, and I wish they had, or, like, and just even in passing of things of, like, oh, when you had to kind of rush over because somebody destroyed the cameras, were you with Mads? That kind of thing. And I do remember his name, Mads, because at first I thought it was a woman, but then as, like, they kind of started, like, discussing things more, I was like, oh, okay, dude, okay, Dan is gay, gotcha. Other things that I appreciated, I definitely could follow Stella's thought process on things, and I liked it a lot, and I did like just the general writing style. Sometimes I wonder, it would be kind of fun if they'd been a little bit more descriptive with the food, because maybe we will get more of that in Layla's book, because she is a baker, so I think that'd be great to see all the sweets. Evelyn St. James is kind of a fun character, because she just, like, tells it like it is, of, like, y'all are idiots. Because, like, you guys are in love with each other, but refuse to acknowledge that the other one is in love with you, and it's really sweet. And maybe that's, again, more in Stella, because Evelyn St. James is the one to be like, look at the clips, I've made a montage, look at the clips. And it's really sweet, and she, even though she's like, well, you couldn't win the competition, but I'm still gonna help you out because I love you. Anyway, it was great. And generally, I would recommend this book to, like, any of my girlfriends if they want a cute, like, kind of Christmas romance. It's very sweet, very funny. I think Mia would really find it funny in the fact, because, like, Luca has kind of the eccentric Italian family, and sometimes in Mia's stories about her family, I'm like, I think you would appreciate this. Just kind of the silliness of it all. Not saying that Mia's family's silly at all. I just think it would be kind of some of the over-the-topness would be kind of funny. And I would, again, also, similar to In a Holidays, give it a 4 out of 5. I think, like I said, just giving, like, either fleshing out more of the characters or cutting out those characters, one of the two, and also putting in the time would be great. Also, maybe 1 or 2 more POV chapters from Luca's perspective, like maybe a chapter from Luca right after they had decided to follow through on okay, we are going to be fake dating, or the time when Luca suddenly decides to drive down at 3 a.m, and that kind of kicks off some of the spiciness, which is like, woohoo! but that's kind of my thought process. I hope you guys liked this review. I hope it made a little bit more sense. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and give me any other book recommendations. I'm in my like fluffy kind of romance era, so any of that would be great. And I shall see you guys next time. Bye!